Hello, welcome back to Pompous Unhelpful Knit. Deja vu, here we are again. I'm so bad at doing intros, I never know what to say because it feels really pointless, but you know what's going to happen. I watched a lot of stuff in September. Let's get into it straight away. So, the first film I watched this month was Passages. And this was a really fun start to the month, and I really enjoyed it. So you probably know what Passages is about. It's Ira Sachs' new film, and it's basically about this messy love triangle between these two guys and this woman, and the two guys are married, and this woman is kind of this extra party that gets sucked into this very toxic relationship. Basically, the film is kind of like a portrait of a narcissist and the absolute havoc that it wreaks on the people's lives that he involves himself with. That's really all he is, and he's just kind of like a broken guy that sucks everyone into this toxic whirlpool of love and chaos, and it's a complete mess. Yeah, and I wrote on my Letterboxd review that I loved the kind of like really fleshy kind of sensual elements of it. It kind of felt like this idea of all these people and how they present themselves, and they wear these vibrant clothes and they have these beautiful houses, but when you take off all the clothes, it's like this is just the bare bones and the flesh of the people underneath, and we see these like really raw versions of themselves. And the whole film is kind of about like physical intimacy versus the emotional relationship that you have with people. And sure, they have these really intense kind of like physical moments with each other where they're being so raw in like expressing their desires and like what they want from a hookup and all this kind of stuff. So they open themselves up in this like physical way, but never in an emotional way, or at least not intentionally, which I thought was really interesting. So reviews of Passages. Rogalski, dejected, discarded, blithely wandering through a grade school PE class. Okay, so the next one I watched this month was Private Life. I really loved this. It was just really beautifully done. I highly recommend it. It's basically about this couple that are trying to conceive, and they're really struggling to do that, and so they go through the whole path of like IVF and kind of assisted reproduction. And it's basically about the effect on their relationship. The script was perfect. It was so smart and clearly written by someone who just gets people and gets the interior world of a relationship and the dynamics between people that are so comfortable with each other. And the kind of central thread of the film is like, are they going to survive this? Is their relationship going to survive? Kathryn Hahn was so good in this. I was so happy for her because, I don't know, I just felt like I was finally seeing her in a role that was like, you know, worthy of her talent. She's such an incredible actress, and like the way that she portrays these like minute expressions and the way that you can see these tiny shifts in her brain as she's like thinking about things and reacting to things, like it was such a next level performance. Like if you don't watch this for the story or the script or any of those things, watch it for Kathryn Hahn. And the end credits to the film, spoiler alert, they fail to have IVF and their route of like assisted reproduction doesn't go well, and they basically go back on the waiting list for adoption. The end of the film is them sitting in a diner, like waiting to meet someone, hoping that they'll meet the mother of their child. And it's just so, it's like really heartbreaking because they're still trying, and you can see how desperately they want this, but it's also so hopeful. And like you can see by the end of the film that their relationship is in a different place by how they're reacting to the situation. Like the first time we see it, they're very stressed, like they're snapping at each other. But this moment at the end credits, it's just this really long shot. They're both sitting on opposite sides of the booth, and then he just goes over and sits next to her, and they just hold hands and they wait and they look out the window, and then the credits roll, and we just stay on this image for like 10 minutes. My heart was like in my mouth, like watching it, because you just feel so strongly for this couple. I'm gonna read some reviews now. This review is funny. This was great, Noah Baumbach muttered to himself, closing his MacBook a little too harshly. I really did enjoy this, he continued, bitterly taking a sip from his latte. Yeah. So then I watched Ordinary People, which is a Robert Redford film. It's his first feature, I think. Came out in 1980. So basically, it's about this family in the aftermath of trauma, and it's about how they rebuild their lives. So the way I see it, in the aftermath of something really bad happening, people react in 3 different ways. People that want to talk about it, people that need to talk about it, and people that can't talk about it. And the 3 people in this family react in each of those 3 ways. Yeah, it's quite difficult to talk about really, because it really really, really got to me. I'm actually writing an article about this right now, so hopefully that will be published soon. It's just brilliantly made. Seeing the way that each person in this family reacts to this trauma, the whole thing with the mum just trying to live in like overdrive to ignore everything that's happened, constantly avoiding all the problems in the family, and the dad that's like trying to be sympathetic, but also his journey with coming to terms with the fact that his wife is not a loving person and she's not really a good mother anymore. That was really heartbreaking, because he doesn't want to believe that his wife could be this cruel to his son, but by the end he's like, oh shit, she is. And then Timothy Hutton's performance, oh my god, I was just like blown away by it. Like all the scenes that he has in therapy with his therapist, and he's, you know, trying to articulate all these thoughts, and eventually it comes down to like this one like realization. And when you see him having that realization in real time, it completely crushed me. And like the whole landscape of the film, it's all set over winter, and it's bleak and it's dreary and it's snowy, and it feels so devoid of like hope, and you really just feel this like weight of like hopelessness. This whole family is just trying to deal with this awful thing in their own way, but when you have all of them in this one melting pot in the same house dealing with the same issues in very different ways, obviously just makes everything worse. That's all I have to say about that. I can't talk about it any longer because I actually will cry. Some reviews that I liked. Someone said that sun-dappled therapy scene where Conrad is draped over the armchair and his therapist is smoking a cigarette, and you can see the smoke drifting through the sun rays, and then the camera pushes in on Conrad, little orange, and he's trying so hard to explain how he feels but just can't grasp at the right words. Beautiful. I replayed it 5 times. Yeah, stunning scene. Absolutely stunning. Someone said Mary Tyler Moore shoves 2 pieces of French toast down a garbage disposal, and it is alarming, like when the mum in Black Swan tries to throw the cake away. This is so honest, it hurts. Yes. Then I watched something a bit lighter, because I've just talked about some very intense films. I watched Roman Holiday, and I had major beef with this movie. So basically, Audrey Hepburn and this guy, don't need to mention his name, she's a queen, and she's like a literal queen, and then she escapes from the palace one night to go and have this like one night in Rome and like do all this like crazy stuff that she's not been allowed to do. She meets this guy who's broke, of course, he's unemployed, he's just a bit of a nothing, and then he decides to exploit her and try and take photos of her and write an article because he's a journalist and he wants to sell the photos to get loads of money. Then blah 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 blah, they fall in love, blah 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 blah, fine. But I was watching with my friend and we were just so disgusted by the way that he treats her that the romance doesn't even feel satisfying, because even when he starts to be nice to her, I was like, you do not deserve her because you were so nasty to her. He put a secret camera inside a lighter and tried to record her. He tried to embarrass her, humiliate her. He tried to plant traps to try and get photos of her in compromising situations. And it was just disgusting. It was so exploitative. And I felt so angry for her because I was like, oh my god, this is her first like experience of love, and she's been absolutely played by this rat of a man. And also there was an implication that he was a lot older than she was, and there were kind of several weird creepy jokes made about like him having sex with her and her being a virgin, and like her being underage because she's 17, and he's definitely a lot older than 17, and that was just disgusting. Yeah, Roman Holiday, I didn't really get the hype because I just felt so disgusted by this romance. Apart from the ending. The ending was really good. It was kind of like La La Land before La La Land kind of vibes. It's like they're both in a room that's busy and they both have a like look at each other across the room, and then we assume that they never see each other again. I'm going to read my review of it because I think it quite accurately describes what I was feeling. I wrote, Joe Bradley should buy a house with a built-in prison and then throw himself in it and eat the key because he's disgusting and using Anne for clout. I have so much contempt and fury for this man. The film should have ended with Anne shooting him and pushing him in the Trevi fountain and getting with the landlord Giovanni. So some reviews. Someone said this movie is the warmest hug none of us can get now and we all need. Like, what movie were you watching? Nothing about this felt like a hug. It felt like a punch to the gut. Someone said, well, this was the cutest shit I've ever seen and now I'm sad. When did you see something cute? I just don't get it. Everyone's like, oh, to be a princess running away from the palace and falling in love with Gregory Peck. No one should want to fall in love with Gregory Peck, okay? Don't do that. I'm serious. So then I watched Past Lives. This was so good. Oh my goodness. So I watched this at the cinema on the day it came out with my friend Doc, and it kind of reminded me of After Sun in the way that it made me feel. So I didn't feel that much when I was watching, apart from right at the end. And then suddenly it all hit me at once like a ton of bricks. And then I have not stopped thinking of this film for the past like 2 weeks, ever since watching it. And the more I think about it, the more I love it, and the more it makes me feel something. It was just beautiful, like everything about it. The performances, they were so affecting. The cinematography was stunning. The score is absolutely beautiful. Like, oh my god, like my next favorite score right now. Yeah, but just very beautiful. I'm gonna read some of what I wrote in my review because I think it kind of makes sense. I wrote, very still and quietly powerful film about the overwhelmingness of our choices. I really love how when they meet each other again, it feels kind of awkward and empty. Like they've built up this picture of who they are, but in reality, they don't really have anything in common, and their connection was unique to a particular space that they don't have anymore. And then they're just underwhelmed by the big space they held in their head for someone that never really existed. And by the end, they realised that it was never this unexplored love story or complex relationship. It was just a question that needed to be answered. Even if the answer is that sometimes you can feel deeply for someone without ever really knowing them, and there isn't a bigger reason for it. It just feels really realistic of like, you meet someone and you build up this big picture in your head and you never really know them. And then if you go and re-explore that connection, it can feel really empty and nothing, because nothing is going to live up to what was in your head. And you realise that you never really knew this person, and it kind of feels like speaking to a ghost. And it's like the weirdest experience. So I really, really liked that about this film. Past Lives, some reviews. Someone said, found a version without subtitles to get the full Arthur experience. Cannot not cry when she does, my heart. Yeah, the ending shot of the film is just unlike anything else, really. Someone said, keep your hopeless romantic friends away from this. This is like crack for them. Yeah. And someone said, in another life type narratives are literally psychological warfare. Yes. This was so difficult to watch. I feel like whenever I watch films like this, I'm just like reminded of like every single one of my failed like romantic endeavors. So then I watched La Cienaga, which I also really, really loved. This was directed by Lucrecia Martel. This is my first of her films. It's basically just like a portrait of this kind of crumbling, failing family, and we just slowly watch them deteriorate over the course of this one summer. And everything feels really stifling. The weather's really hot. They're all trapped in this house that's very dark. There's no aircon. The river is really unclean and their swimming pool is full of leaves. And it's really just like a film about this family that's in decline. Yeah, I just really liked it. It kind of shows like what too much freedom can do to people, and you know, they have all this time to do nothing, but it's very destructive. A review I liked, someone said, Martel's first feature observes an Argentinian family that's mired in a seemingly permanent state of rot. Their declining socio-economic fortunes and their paralysingly provincial mentality have led this clan, split between a house in the wetlands and the nearby town that leads the film to its title, to embody what Martel describes as a society that lives vaguely hoping that nothing will ever change, and in terror of everything repeating itself indefinitely. They are completely and irrevocably stuck. A storm is always threatening to displace them, yet it never touches down. In fact, it never even rains. It's almost as if the characters, usually gathered around the brackish waters of the pool that has been installed at the family estate, are living inside the eye of a hurricane. It's deceptively serene, but to step outside of their immediate environment seems unfathomable. Yeah, they all just kind of feel trapped by their world, and it feels like they're just accepting the fact that their lives will go down the same route as the people that preceded them. And that was really sad. Like, you can see this hope in the kids, but also you can see that they are slowly realizing that they are stuck this way, and they will probably end up like their mother, because their mother became like their grandmother, who became like their great grandmother, the sister who was smitten by the housekeeper, a burgeoning lesbian. Yes. So then I watched US Go Home, and this is like the first film of Claire Denis, and it was really, really interesting and a brilliant premise. So it's basically about a teenage girl called Martine who really, really wants to lose her virginity. So she's kind of like on this quest to like go to a party and find someone to have sex with. Which, first of all, really, really cool premise. We don't really see any movies ever about teenage girls with any kind of like sexual agency. It was like partly like cool to see that kind of agency from a young woman, but there were also obviously downfalls to it, which I'll get into. Yeah, so she goes to this party, and I think her vision of what womanhood is like and what growing up is like slowly kind of like disappears over the course of the film. She starts out, she feels a bit more naive and immature, and then as the film goes on and she interacts with more people that are older than her, I think she slowly realizes that being a woman isn't all it's cut out to be sometimes, and that actually men are quite dangerous and sex isn't always this like really empowering, great experience. It was a difficult watch towards the end because you see this young woman that's so desperate to grow up and be like other women that she admires, but then by the end she's kind of forced herself to grow up really quickly and have an experience that she's maybe not ready for. But it was just kind of, yeah, it was really quite bleak to see this happen in like real time, because it all happens over the course of like one evening at this one party, I think. And then at the end of the film, she's like going home from the party, she hasn't had sex with anyone, and then this really creepy guy is like driving around at night, and then she goes into his car and he's like, oh, I'll drive you home and stuff. And then obviously it escalates from there. He's like, how old are you? And he's obviously old and disgusting, and she's literally like 14, and we kind of end, we don't see it happening, but we know that it happened. So yeah, this was a really, really insightful film from Claire Denis, so ahead of its time. Yeah, really, really recommend that. Some reviews that I liked. Oh god, someone just said, get used to disappointment. That's so bleak. Someone said, we all have the desire to grow up faster than we should. We are desperate to become adult and be free. This beautiful film shows a teenager designed to be older, desiring to be noticed, to be loved and admired. Yes. So then I watched Old Joy, which is a older Kelly Reichardt film. I think this came out before Wendy and Lucy. I really, really love this. This is so old, I just keep saying the same thing for every film. It was so intimate, so present, so grounded, so realistic. Just a really, really well-crafted film. So it's basically about two old friends. One of them is about to become a dad, the other one isn't. They go on a road trip for one weekend to do like one last hike before he becomes a father. And it's basically about this friendship that's kind of like faded, and it's about these two people trying to reconnect, and they're kind of realizing that their friendship is no longer what it used to be, and they just kind of spend one last weekend with each other, kind of silently knowing that they probably won't hang out again because they don't really have anything in common anymore. It was so amazing, like really relatable, because you have these two guys, they clearly have like a bunch of nostalgic experiences that they've shared together, like they went to college together, and occasionally we have moments where you can see glimmers of this like old friendship, and you can see them connecting over something that really meant something to them a long time ago. And then there are other moments where it's so awkward between them because they don't know how to talk about their current life, they only know how to talk about things that have happened in the past. And there were just some really beautiful moments that I think really showcase like some lovely aspects of like male friendship that we don't really see in film that often. Particularly Kurt. Kurt is such an interesting character because he's the one that reaches out to this old friend to go camping, and you can tell that he really needs this trip. You can tell that there's something going on in his life and he's not really happy. And that was such an interesting part of the film because there's like a moment where he kind of opens up to him and he starts saying something and then he retracts it and it's like really awkward. But then that moment is kind of hanging over the rest of their weekend because they don't know how to talk about anything real. Yeah, it was just a really interesting look at like the changing nature of our friendships and how we deal with that as our lives go on different paths, whether we can rekindle like old connections with people that we have shared memories with, whether that's enough to sustain a relationship. And by the end it kind of leaves the two of them in this really quite clear place where I feel like we know that they probably won't see each other ever again, but it's still really sad because you can tell that one of them maybe needs the friendship more than the other one. Some reviews. Oh yeah, someone said Kelly gave a shout out to all the fellas out there that have tried their best to reanimate an obviously long dead friendship and failed miserably. Very beautiful to look at and very painful to watch. Yes. Someone said, no one does no talking like Kelly does no talking. Oh, I like this one. Kaylee said, the feeling of your head resting against the glass pane of the car, your almost friend awkwardly clearing his throat in the seat beside you, the trees standing silent in your wake. Oh. Oh, also there's an original score by Yola Tengo, which is so sick. So that was really, really nice. So then I watched Summer Hours. And once again, I really, really love this. I rated it 5 stars. So this is an Olivier Assayas film. So I've seen like Personal Shopper and like Irma Vep and stuff, and like I like those, but I wasn't really blown away by them. And this film, interestingly, is kind of like more inspired by personal experiences, and I think that's why I like it so much, because it feels so real. So the film is basically about these 3 siblings, and their mother dies, and she was this famous artist. She collected all this furniture and she had all these really lovely things, and it's about the 3 siblings in the aftermath of her death deciding what to do with all her stuff. And what I liked about this is that you could predict that the film could go down this route of showing all this contempt between the siblings and like them arguing about what to do with their mum's stuff, but none of that happens, and it just shows this really beautiful family dynamic between these people that are really kind and compassionate towards each other during a very difficult time. It was just like really calm and like sensitive and really lovely, and it was really refreshing to see like a healthy family dynamic, and I really, really liked that. And there were just lots of great like genuine moments that felt so real that you couldn't really believe that it was a film, because it just didn't feel scripted at all. Like it just felt like so authentic. Well, this particular family, it shows how they like grow stronger through dark times, and that they lean on each other, and they always bond over these like small silly moments that kind of holds them together. Now I'm gonna read some reviews. Someone said, my instincts kept screaming about how fragile everything is, but along the way I kept learning to trust that everything would be held and cushioned. Lots of letting go, lots of holding on, lots of conflict resolved swiftly with love, happy for the vase that escaped and gets to be filled. What a lovely review. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, Juliette Binoche is in it, and she's incredible, so another reason to watch it. Then I watched Still Walking, and I did like it. I did really like it. It was a really well done film. It was like one of those films that you know it's good, and you know, you feel things when you're watching it, but you don't really think about it too much later. And it's all about all these people in the family and the things that they don't talk about when they see each other again, and the way that they just try to kind of carry on with life as normal. And there's this massive elephant in the room, so the whole film is just about this like elephant in the room as they meet every single year. It was good. I don't really have too much to say. I'll see if there are some reviews. Someone just quoted the film saying, that's why we invite him. If you've seen the film, you know that moment is pretty breathtaking. It's quite a punch to the gut. Then I watched The Big Chill, and dare I say it, this was my favourite film of the whole month. So this came out in the 80s. It's directed by Lawrence Kasdan, and it's basically about these old friends that all met in college. They haven't seen each other in a while, and they all reunite for one weekend for the funeral of one of their friends that was part of their friend group, and this friend killed himself. It's kind of interesting because I saw the film getting a lot of shit because people were saying like, oh, they're all so privileged, blah 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 blah, like they never acknowledge this, like the problems are meaningless. And whilst I do understand that, like I still really, really enjoyed it because their dynamic was so enjoyable to watch. Like it's just like a bunch of old friends being stupid and silly with each other and bonding and connecting during a very dark time. And it's about like familiarity, and when you're so comfortable with someone that you can just be so yourself around them. And there was something so like endearing and lovely about watching that, and it just felt like you were part of this friend group. I think that's just in general like what I realized with the films that I watched this month is that authenticity is so hard to recreate on film. So whenever I see films that feel like that, I feel them very deeply because it feels like a hard thing to do, to be able to watch a group of 8 actors interacting with each other as if they are best friends and have known each other their whole lives. Like when you think about it, that's kind of an insane thing to do. And like in this film, they're so familiar with each other, like the way they interact, the way they touch each other, the way that they can eat breakfast in silence, and the way that they have inside jokes about things that no one else understands, and the way that they kind of like lovingly teasing each other and being mean about their flaws because they know each other that well. Like that kind of level of authenticity and intimacy between friends on film is not really something I feel like you see that often. So to me, it felt like a really special thing. Some reviews I liked. Someone said, yes, I'm corny. Yes, this is the perfect movie for me because I love when people are in a big house together and have relationships and history. And William Hurt is there with an earring and some problems, looking stunning. And Kevin Kline is being a very good husband in some very short shorts. Makes me laugh and makes me sad. And the soundtrack bangs. And I don't know what you want from me. I love all of the rip-offs of it too, even the bad ones. Yeah. So then I watched Double Indemnity, which was like fine. Like, I did enjoy it. I really loved the dialogue. The way that they flirt with each other was so funny because they just say the most random shit and it's really like erotic. The romance wasn't that satisfying. The ending to me was a bit, I don't know, I guess it was a plot twist, but I kind of felt like it was coming, so I wasn't like really blown away by it. Someone said, every time he says baby, take a drink. Yeah, that did annoy me. He calls her baby like every 5 seconds. That's annoying. Then I watched Rotting in the Sun. This was interesting. So this is a recent release directed by Sebastian Silva, who also stars in the film. And this was fun. It was kind of like Uncut Gems kind of vibes. If Uncut Gems was about lots of gay people and murder, then this is kind of what this is like. But yeah, I just put this on one night. I wasn't really expecting too much from it, and I had like a really fun time. You couldn't really predict anything that happened, and it was so ridiculous that it was so entertaining. It did kind of fall off a bit at the end. I felt like the last maybe like 25 minutes I was a bit bored by it because it became a little bit predictable, and so at the end it kind of lost the pace. But it was so funny. It was so funny. Like there were all these scenes of people speaking to each other via Google Translate, but the Google Translate kept like getting things wrong, and like the people were just really miscommunicating with each other, and it was the funniest thing ever. So funny, like really, really entertaining watch. I definitely recommend it. Just really like shocking and thrilling and unpredictable, and just like a really fun ride. So some reviews. Someone said, Sebastian, I'm feeling kind of down, man. I don't know, Matteo, you need to kill yourself now. That's funny if you've seen it. I hate when Mubi writes reviews. It's like, shut up, everyone knows who you are. I also just have like beef with Mubi because I've applied for so many jobs with them. Then I watched Maurice. So this is like a James Ivory film. Yeah, it was okay. It didn't really affect me too much. I think I felt kind of weird about it because I get that like English people are really annoying and we used to talk like that in Edwardian times, but it felt like really stilted and like really forced and kind of awkward in terms of some of the performances and like the dialogue and stuff. And I don't know whether that's just the reading of it because people were talking in like olden times, but for me it kind of, I didn't feel the emotional impact of it as much because people were talking in this very kind of stiff and clinical way almost. But anyway, was good. Like there were lots of good elements about it, like what it does to a person to like repress yourself that much, and like the contrast between these two guys and how they deal with their sexuality. That was cool. But yeah, there was something about it that just like didn't really sit right with me. So yep. Some reviews. Do you realize I would have gone through life half awake if you'd had the decency to leave me alone? Oof, that line. That really, really was, yeah. Oh no, this review's funny. I am cross gay, cross a homosexual, cross attracted to men, tick, and unspeakable of the Oscar Wilde sort. That was so funny. It was like basically the guy coming out to his doctor, and he was like, I am an unspeakable of the Oscar Wilde sort. And you're like, bruv, literally just say that you're gay. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, I wouldn't if I were him, but yeah, it was just a really funny way of putting it. And then on the same night, I watched Sex, Lies and Videotape. Yeah, this was like fine. I'm actually removing a star because I don't think it's worth 3.5. It's kind of about emotional and physical intimacy and the kind of like push and pull between the both of them, and like this balancing act of like what's needed to sustain a healthy relationship in terms of like emotional and physical aspects. So it's kind of like an interesting look at what really makes a good relationship and what's needed from both people in order to be like fulfilling. But I don't know, I think again I was quite tired when I was watching this, so I don't think I was fully invested, but I appreciate some of the ideas that were being explored, but I wasn't like gripped by it. By the end I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but I wasn't like, oh my god, like, wow. Someone said James Spade is soft-spoken. Yes, agreed. Someone said, oh, it won the Palme d'Or. That's cool. Did not know that. Yeah, that's basically it. It was good. Quite enjoyed it. Then I watched The Loneliest Planet. This was pretty sick. So I heard about this film for a while and I was like, kind of like, do I watch it, do I not? Because it didn't really have like that high rating on Letterboxd. And that's so annoying. I'm sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't hear like great things about it. So it's like this couple that go on this really, really long hike. And there's a moment on the hike that changes the entire course of their relationship. And it's so interesting because the moment is so small. Like the actual scene itself is a big scene, but the moment that changes the nature of their relationship is so tiny that like you blink and you can miss it. Like after it happened, I was like, did he just do that? Or like, did that really happen? And then the rest of the film shows the fallout of this one tiny thing that happened. This one thing that is almost, it's just like a gut reaction, you know? Yeah, I thought that was so interesting to just go from like seeing them being so close and intimate and loved up to being so distant for the rest of the film and kind of like inwardly grappling with the future of their relationship and like the validity of it. Like that was so interesting. So yeah, really, really good. And I'm also ashamed that I only know, what's the lead guy? Gael Garcia Bernal. I hope I didn't butcher that name. I'm ashamed that I only know him from Letters to Juliet. That's so embarrassing because he was so good in it. A review I liked, someone said, nothing happens for an hour, then one thing happens and someone makes a knee-jerk reaction. Then no one talks about either the thing that happened or the reaction to what happened. Hard to say since no one's talking. Then nothing happens for another hour until there's an awkward moment. Then nothing happens at the end. I was riveted. That's such a good review because that's really, really, really what the film is. Like they're just hiking and nothing's happening. Then something happens, then nothing happens. Then something happens and then nothing happens again. And that's the whole film. Someone said, this is quietly devastating. Lokiev's decision to never confront the scene that changes the entire landscape of this film is surely a brilliant one. She lets the viewer wade through the depth of the split-second decision one character made only through the body language of the actors. Gael Garcia, in particular, is amazing in the aftermath of the film's big moment. His pained facial expressions, slumped shoulders, and self-isolation in the last hour is some of the best acting I've watched from him. And throughout all of this, Loktev and Briones punctuate every scene with stunning imagery in these isolated mountains. Yes, agreed. So yeah, Loneliest Planet, really, really good, really interesting. Well, this film is very special because it's directed by one of my very, very good friends, Oscar, and the film is called A Van Called Muriel, and a bunch of people worked on it that I know and like I'm also friends with, and yeah, this is Oscar's first feature film, which is a pretty massive achievement, pretty incredible, and it's so funny and so heartwarming, and it was so lovely seeing this on the big screen and celebrating it with everybody that worked on it. But yeah, so it's basically about this like folk band that are traveling to a gig, and it's about all the shenanigans that happen on tour, and it's very funny, it's very sweet, it's shot very beautifully by my friend Sarah. The performances are amazing, and yeah, just a really lovely project that means a lot to a lot of people, and it was just really brilliant to see it on the big screen and experience it in all its glory. So yes, well done, Oscar. Go watch A Van Called Muriel. I think it's out streaming soon, maybe. I'll ask Oscar and put a link in the description, but yeah, very proud of everyone. Some reviews of A Van Called Muriel. It's all from people I know. Kyle said, absolutely wonderful, loved every second and laughed throughout. Well done, everyone, so proud of you. Yes. And someone said Baz's life. If you've watched the film, you'll understand that. Then I watched The Court Jester. I watched this with my friend Dexter. This was fun. This was kind of like Princess Bride kind of vibes. It's like big set pieces, crazy characters, really particular sense of humor, and really ridiculous plot lines, and it was very entertaining. It's just a bunch of tomfoolery and funny jokes, and sorry, I've got the hiccups again. It's just really funny. Really, really funny. So I'm going to read some reviews of this. I can't really find that many reviews, so I'll read mine. I just quoted the movie saying, "The palace with the chalice as the vessel with the pestle and the brew that is true." Just remember that. And that's a pretty iconic quote from the movie. So after watching The Court Jester, I watched Everybody Loves Jeanne, and I really didn't like it. It was so annoying. It was on Mubi. Again, another reason to have beef with Mubi. So it's basically about this woman called Jeanne, and her life is kind of a mess, so she goes back home to like sell her mother's apartment, and then she kind of like meets this guy, and they kind of just like mess around and get up to no good. But it was just, I found her a really unlikable character. I found like it was trying to be too quirky and like whimsical for its own good, but it just felt kind of annoying. And like it kept having this thing where they would show animations of like her thoughts in her head, but it felt really like overdone to the point where it just wasn't funny, and it felt like it was trying to be really funny, but it wasn't funny. So sorry, I really didn't love it. Fucking Mubi rating it. Drawing the rom-com in vibrant new colours, Celine Deveau switches well-worn battles of the sexes for an animated tussle between rival worldviews, as relatable cynic and eccentric optimist Blanche Gardin and Laurent Lafitte fizz with perfect chemistry in this can-selected delightful debut. Shut up, Mubi. It's really not that. I would have done so much for Mubi. I would have cleaned their toilets. I would have fuck Mubi. Sorry, hate to say it. I used to be their biggest hater, and now I'm their biggest I used to be their biggest fan, and now I'm the biggest hater. It's like going through a breakup, but with Mubi. It's like, oh my god, I would have done anything for you, and now I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I ever loved you. Yeah, so then I watched Metropolitan. I didn't really love it. It's kind of sad. Like the month started off so strong, and then it ended kind of on a bit of a flop. Metropolitan is basically about this group of really rich kids in New York, and then they let in this guy to their group that's not as wealthy as them, and it's kind of about how he shakes things up, but it's also not, because he just kind of blends in with them. The premise of the film, like the way it's described, it sounds like he like completely like reinvents this group and exposes them to what real life is like and all this kind of stuff, but he doesn't. Like he just like joins the group and he becomes friends with them, and he has some ideas that are a bit different to them, but nothing that challenges their way of life, and it just felt so like pointless. I don't really get it. I'm probably not smart enough to understand it. Didn't feel like it was challenging. I didn't feel like it was saying anything that really was like interesting. So maybe I need to watch it again, but I just didn't really like it. Someone said beginning to think it's a requirement for anything about rich kids in the Upper East Side to have at least one character named Serena. Yeah, it was kind of like Gossip Girl vibes before Gossip Girl, but if all the characters in Gossip Girl were actually really well read. I finally watched Minari. This is so cute. I was actually supposed to watch this on a date like when it came out, and then we never did. But yeah, it was beautiful. Really, really beautiful. What a stunning little film. Felt really nostalgic, even though I have none of those experiences really. And also just like really sad, you know, because it's kind of push and pull of like the life we want versus the life we have, and like how do we make things better, but to make things better things have to get worse. And it's looking at a family balancing all of those things, trying to create something better for themselves. And the score was so beautiful. I mean, obviously everyone knows that one song from the score, from that stupid TikTok sound. Some reviews. Someone said, and the Academy Award goes to Alan Kim and his little cowboy boots. Yeah. Oh, someone said, who cares if I drank a little pee? It was fun. That was a funny moment. And the last film I watched this month was Stop Making Sense. And I'm so ridiculously happy right now because I just finished watching it. So Talking Heads and LCD Sound System are my two favourite bands of all time. And watching this made me so happy and so sad at the same time. And watching this, it was like, I'm so happy that I'm seeing this, but I'm so sad that I wasn't there to witness this in person. Like, if I could go back in time and be at that concert, I would give up. I'm sorry to my family, but I would give up all of you to have the opportunity to go to that concert. It's just so spectacular. Like, everything. It's David Byrne's giant suit. It's when he dances with the lamp. It's the way that the concert slowly builds up from nothing and all the band members like slowly trickle on stage. It's him running around the stage and pretending to dance with a broken leg. It's when they sing "This Must Be the Place." It's Tina Weymouth in Leg Warmers, and when she does that little crab dance around the stage with the Tom Tom Club. It's just fucking spectacular. Like the lighting, the choreography that they have, the way that they engage with the crowd, and when they play Once in a Lifetime, like holy fuck. I'm just so happy right now, but I'm so sad because I want to be at that concert more than anything. Carson just said, same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Yes. Someone said, great as ever. The part where he's pleasantly surprised that the lamp doesn't fall over really hit this time round. Yeah. So that was everything I watched in... Let me get comfy. That was everything I watched in September. Really, really great month. I'm feeling very fulfilled by everything I've watched. I feel really happy about it all. Feel very lucky to have movies in my life. So glad that this is what I do, kind of. She says, hopefully. Someone hire me, please, but not Mubi, because find someone else to clean your toilets. But yeah, what a great month. What a great month for films. Personal reflection of September. What did I do? It was like really busy. I saw a lot of friends and that was great. It was really hot. I watched a lot. I worked hard. Had a few job interviews, so that's good. I went on some dates, which is kind of ratchet of me. I feel like the end part of this year is going to be better for me. The first 8 months of this year were absolutely awful. But I feel like October, November, December, that's where it's at. That's what's going to be going on for me. It's going to be good. I'm going to do lots of cool things. I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm going to get a job that I care about. I'm going to go now. I've said too much. I've talked a lot, so bye.